Greetings from AthenaVision Studios and welcome to our sixth installment, Parthenon Particles. I'm Lieutenant Joseph Fugate and I'll be your host. Our very special guest for this episode will be Deputy Fleet Commander Admiral Tim Schell. In Star Trek news, back on Star Trek Day in 2022, it was announced that a series called Star Trek Con was in development. Nothing has since been announced, so it came as a surprise when it was recently revealed that production had wrapped on the audio series. Its titular star is Naveen Andrews, who played Saeed in the ABC television series Lost. Drafted by Nicholas Meyer, it tells us the story of the events that occurred between the original series episode Space Seed and the second Trek film The Wrath of Khan. There will be 9 episodes of roughly 30 minutes each, and it is likely to be released later this year on most major podcast platforms. Congratulations goes out to Zoe Saldana for her Academy Award win for her supporting role in the film Emilia Perez. Saldana, of course, played Uhura in all 3 Kelvinverse films. She joins an elite group of other Oscar-winning Trek actors, including last year's Best Actress winner Michelle Yeoh, Christopher Plummer, and Whoopi Goldberg. During our last social gathering in the Allen Odyssey Lounge on Zoom, we discussed when the 3rd season of Strange New Worlds might premiere. While that date has yet to be announced, it may come as no surprise that filming has begun for the 4th season on March 24th. Of course, there's little news about what may be featured in that 4th season right now, but it's thought that we're likely to see more canon characters. Now, let's take a break and I'll share some more Star Trek memes. An away mission report from Fleet Captain Kathy Peck. Stardate 202503.23. USS Athena celebrated Chief O'Brien Day at Camino Real Mexican Restaurant in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. A week late, but still fun. Great food and great conversations to celebrate the most important person in Starfleet history. On March 6th, crew members gathered with recruit Derek Martin's meetup group at 615 Chutney Indian Restaurant in Nashville. They participated in a general trivia competition against other groups and finished in a proud 2nd place. Happy birthday was sung as our fleet captain enjoyed a slice of her birthday cake. In coming events, our commanding officers invite everyone to attend Stellar Fest in Duluth, Georgia, April 4th through the 6th, where Kathy and Ryan will be presenting a Star Trek panel. You can also meet Kathy's other lover, actor Stephen Manley, who portrayed 17-year-old Spock, also known as Ponfar Spock, in the 3rd Star Trek film, The Search for Spock. Kathy and Ryan will also be doing a presentation at the Huntsville Comic-Con and Pop Culture Expo in Huntsville, Alabama. Hamish Willis invites members to join him at the Tennessee Renaissance Festival in Arrington on Saturday, May 3rd at 11 a.m. for what he calls Trek Back in Time. Wear your favorite Star Trek cosplay and interact as it to patrons and cast as able for a fun and entertaining day. Be sure to avoid agents from the Department of Temporal Violations. For more information, see Hamish's invitation on the USS Athena members only Facebook page. I'd like to take the time now to welcome new crew member Alan Hauschel to our fine ship. It's a pleasure to have you. I'd also like to congratulate Rachel Main for passing her officer exams, which earns her a promotion to ensign. Now, let's get to our guest, Admiral Tim Schell. Admiral Schell, I'd like to welcome you to the Parthenon Particles. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with the typical questions. What? How'd you get interested in Star Trek?
Well, I always watched Star Trek as a kid in the '70s when the reruns were going on. So I was a lifetime fan, so to speak. And I remember when the animated series started, I was really excited about that. And throughout the '70s, on my local station in Detroit, we used to I think Star Trek used to come on at 6. Batman came on at 5:30, and Ultraman came on at 4:30 or 4. So I would spend my afternoon from like 4 to 6 in the house watching all these shows.
Okay. Do you have a favorite character?
Well, Uhura was always my favorite character. I mean, I liked everybody equally, but Uhura was always um, my favorite because it's always
Okay.
important to see somebody that looks like you on screen
Ah,
in an important role.
okay.
So,
Um,
I mean, it's commonplace now, but back in the '70s, you didn't have a lot of positive black characters on TV
I
always.
understand. Okay. And I'm assuming the original series would be your
Yes,
favorite series.
yes, original series is on the top.
Okay. I grew up with the Next Generation and Voyager, so
Okay.
those two are my favorites. Hmm. How did you come to Starfleet Command?
Well, back in the '80s, and I'm showing my age here, so uh, I remember either seeing an advertisement in either some fan journal or maybe it was Starlog. I don't remember, but I came across it and was always intending to join, but I never got around to it. I think mostly because maybe it was. I think it was. I forget what the thing was at the time for membership, but it's the '80s. I was a teenager, didn't
Ah,
have
yeah.
a whole lot of extra disposable money. So I eventually joined in 1986 um, when I was 18. And I started out with, I joined it was called Planetary Outposts back when we had Planetary Outposts. Uh,
Okay.
it was called Planetary Outposts. Um, I can't even think of the name now. It's been so long. Um, it'll come back to me, but
Is that
oh
planetary outposts as in, is that what units
yes,
used to be called
yeah.
or
Well,
star
very
bases?
small units used to be planetary outposts back then, and
Okay.
it was called the Antares, Planetary Outpost Antares.
Ah,
And I believe it was me and one other, or maybe two other people at the time. And I eventually became first officer. I think because back then, you wrote to each other. There was no internet, basically. So,
Oh, right, right.
so yeah, and we were all scattered around Michigan, so we basically wrote each other, basically. So,
I didn't even consider the lack of
yeah, I mean, this is the 80s.
internet
So,
and what that
yeah,
would mean.
yeah, unless you saw them somewhere, and back at that time, there really wasn't any events, so to speak. Big pop culture events. So you didn't really get to see them unless you wrote a letter, and that's what he did.
Okay.
Eventually, the commander didn't rejoin or whatever happened, and I ended up uh, being the CO, and I was the CO until I moved to Ohio in the early 90s.
Okay.
So that was also the year I joined Starfleet Command is when I went to my first Star Trek convention.
Ah,
And the first star I ever met was Nichelle Nichols.
ah.
So that was one of the reasons I went, and I think that prompted me to join Starfleet Command. Maybe I found a flyer there, I don't remember. So it was a good time. And always was a lovely lady. She was very gracious to the fans.
Okay. I actually got involved with fandom. It wasn't Starfleet Command, it was a ship that was a part of the United Federated Planets.
Okay.
Uh, and it was because of a guy that I met in the aisle of a Target in the Star Trek toy aisle, who saw me looking at Star Trek toys and asked if I was a fan. And he ran a club in Indiana and wanted to know if I would like to join. I was just a teen at the time. I wasn't even 16 yet and able to drive, but uh, and then things kind of fell through. I sent him my information and never really heard anything. And then, but I did have a little bit of information and ran into somebody that had a name that I had seen in some paperwork at a theater. This guy worked at the theater and I told him that I had met the commanding officer of the club and never really got uh, involved after that. And he told me that he would get with the guy's name was Doug, that with who was the commanding officer. He told me he'd get with Doug and get back with me. So yeah, and that was still we had email, but not so much websites and such.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it was AOL or one of the other ones that were popular at the time.
yeah. Huh. Uh, anyway, I am told that you have, speaking of conventions, that you have some funny stories linked to conventions. Is that
Well,
true?
I don't know if they're funny, and my one funny story isn't really Star Trek related. Funny story.
Okay.
I've um in the late '80s, early '90s, I used to help out at a convention. At the time, it was called Star Trek Toronto. And since I lived in Detroit, it was really easy to cross the border and just go to Toronto.
Right.
And I helped them for more than a decade before they changed the name at some point. And were called Polaris. And so I was a guest liaison for a good number of years. So I've met numerous Star Trek, Babylon 5, Stargate people that I was responsible for those weekends, and uh, it was funny. I mean, I guess the one Star Trek funny thing was the year Garrett Wang came to our convention. Uh,
Okay.
he now, even back then, he was very interactive with the fans. So he would hang out in the lobby and stuff. And we were
Oh,
talking, and he actually said, we should go to a strip club. We didn't
well,
go. It actually there was a strip club right next, not too far from where the hotel was, but we didn't go
okay.
because he just kept talking to the fans, and I didn't push the idea any further because I felt a bit uncomfortable doing that. But so that was my one thing with a Star Trek guest. Most of all the other Star Trek guests I've encountered were very nice people. I've not had really any issues with anybody. So very
He
interesting.
was the lead guest at a creation convention I went to in Dayton,
Okay.
Ohio. So that was how I met. He was still doing the show at that time. They were probably in their second or third season. So, uh, okay.
So,
Um,
I mean, it's not Star Trek related, but I can tell you the other story if you want to hear it.
okay.
It's more of a Star Wars related thing. So,
I'm sure we have Star Wars fans that would be
I'm sure
interested.
you own the ship. So, many years ago, well, many years ago, probably whenever they used to do those annual Star Wars conventions in Indianapolis, they used to do them up there. So, this was the second one. And I went with some work friends and we went to the convention. So that Sunday, we waited in line all day for Carrie Fisher's autograph because my one coworker and was obsessed with Star Wars, and I'm sure he probably still is. And we waited all line for Carrie Fisher. So I mean, I was kind of I watched Star Wars, but I'm not a fan. So we
I
waited
feel the
all
same
line.
way.
Yeah, so I enjoy it, but it's not Star Trek. So
No.
we wait online. We finally get into the room. I have my picture, which I still have to this day. Um, I go into the room. I give her my picture, and she looks up at me and she says, "Oh my God, a black man." And I told her, I'm like, "Well, there's a few of us in line, not that many." And she said, "You know where that's from, right?" And I'm like, "No." So apparently, in the movie Blast from the Past, I guess
I've
when they
not
come
seen it.
basement out of the blue, they were in a bomb shelter and they come out, and the first person they encounter is a black letter carrier, and I guess they say
Ah,
something similar to that. So I'm having this interaction with Princess Leia, and my friend, who went a friend me, is seeing all this, and I'm getting all this one-on-one time with her. So she personalized my photo and she wasn't personalizing anybody's.
ooh,
So
nice.
I got it personalized and I said goodbyes and I walk off. Before I could walk out the room, one of her handlers came up to me and said, "You weren't offended, were you?" And I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh." I said, "No, it was a joke. It was funny. And I know how
yeah.
it is." So it was like, fun. So we go out the room and my friends, "You should have been offended. So we could have got a picture with her." And I'm like, "Well, you should have said something."
Hmm.
So that's my Carrie Fisher story.
Okay. Huh. Uh, I have a friend. I don't know if I should tell this story. I have a friend who's a big Jamie Lee Curtis fan, and she doesn't do conventions. But several years back, she arranged a convention to do with Horror Hound,
Okay.
and she did it on the basis that all the money that she took in for it, for photos and autographs and such, would go to a children's hospital that she supported.
Well, that's nice.
Uh, My friend used to be a notorious liar.
Okay.
He couldn't. He had lied to his parents and family for years about various things, and I know he couldn't help it. But anyway, he had his picture taken with her earlier that day, and he took it back to her later on. She signed autographs after she spoke. And she personalized it for him by writing. I don't know why she wrote this, but it was kind of spot on. She said, so she wrote, "Don't lie" in his name on the photo before she signed it, and in a like a bubble above her head. So I I've always
She
found that amusing.
she knew something.
She didn't know him, but she she knew that much for how somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, you've been one of you've been the only admiral that I can remember that has visited the Athena on a few occasions for our personal gatherings. Most recently, just after Starbase Indy, you attended our Christmas party.
Yes.
Uh, I wasn't there. I'd moved back to Ohio by then, but
Well,
uh,
I had to a meeting earlier before the
yeah,
Christmas
you
one.
came to I think our Star Trek 3 viewing party.
Yes, the Star Trek 3 viewing party.
I was
Yeah.
at that one.
Yes.
Though at the time I didn't realize what a bigwig you
I'm not a
were.
big wig. I'm not that big of a big wig.
You're the deputy fleet admiral, just one
uh,
step from the top.
that's what Tony keeps telling me, and I'm like, I'm just a spare, just like the royalty. Nobody cares about you until they need you.
Oh, anyway, can you speak to those experiences with us?
Sure. When I took on the position of a deputy fleet commander, one of my goals was to try to get to as many meetings of the ships that actually still did meetings. And there's not a lot that still do in-person meetings that was somewhat close to me to do. So
Okay,
I live in Kentucky, so going down to Nashville was about 2.5 hours, maybe three to drive down there. And I've been to, I think, one of the Indianapolis's meetings so far. Last.
okay.
So, and I've gone to a couple of the meetings of the Yorktown in Cincinnati.
I didn't realize that's where they are.
Yeah, they're in Cincinnati. The
I
Yorktown.
was thinking they were in New York for some
No,
reason.
Yorktown is in the, yeah, Yorktown is literally the oldest still operating ship.
Now
And
that I'm aware of.
yeah, they're still oldest still operating ship in Starfleet Command at this point. I think they just had their 40th anniversary, I want to say.
Okay.
Or maybe it's 30th, but I know it's a long, is way up there. So my goal was to go and interact, and I know we talk on Zoom and we have these meetings and the newsletters, but I always like to have the personal approach when I can, and if I'm available, it's a road trip for me.
Nice.
So that's why I've come to the Athena events. The weekends those happen, I happen to be free, and the same thing with the Indianapolis and with the Yorktown. So I hope to keep doing that as much as I can. So it's been fun to interact with people I probably would never ever interact with on, if they don't come to Starbase Indy or other conventions that I may be at. So it's been fun. I hope to keep doing what I'm doing.
All right. I know it's always a pleasure to have you for
I appreciate that.
especially for those who knew who you were.
See, now you know who I am now. So
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember you there at that first one uh as the stranger from the
But
outside.
didn't you get promoted in that one too? I remember, right?
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah,
when we
that's when we
first
promoted.
premiered AthenaVision.
Yes, you got promoted that day, so
Yes.
I remember.
So that's right. You were the one that presented me with the certificates.
Yes.
So I just saw that video somewhat recently. I
Uh,
had actually forgotten until I saw that I'd been promoted to chief of communications. So that was news to me when I saw that video again. I knew I was in operations and communications is part of operations, but
yeah.
anyhow. All right. I think that's all I have for you, unless there's anything that you would like to discuss.
No, no. I mean, you guys have been doing great with your interaction with the fans and growing your ship and Starfleet Command. So I only thing I can say is keep up the good work and keep, keep pushing. I don't think pushing would be the best word to use, but keep saying, getting out there and getting the word out about Starfleet Command and Star Trek in general.
Certainly. I'm sure our commanding officers will be proud to hear you say that. So, all right. Well, thank you for being a part of our program.
No problem.
I'm going to end the video now, but I'll still stick around and talk to you. So,
Sure.
thanks again.
No worries.
Once more, thank you, Admiral Shell, for joining us on Parthenon Particles. And as always, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for watching our program and being a part of Starfleet Command and the USS Athena. Again, my name is Joseph Fugate, and I'll see you soon in another Athena Vision.